Hi, this is Heidi. Episode 6. Don't make it about you. This podcast is for people seeking confidence to write the next chapter in their lives. It's time to invest in you. Hi, friends. First, thank you to my dear friend Jane for my first iTunes review. She wrote, "Love this podcast. Thank you, Heidi." Shout out to my friend Jane, who uses these tools with clients who are struggling in marriage and want to stay married. She's at janecopiercoaching.com, and she is amazing. Okay. Today, I want to do a podcast on a very powerful mental tool that can provide you a huge amount of emotional control and mental clarity and allow you to show up as a much more confident and, frankly, pleasant person. This tool is the ability to stop making things in the world or things people say mean anything negative about us. What another person does or says really isn't about us. It's about them. So let me explain this, and I'm going to give you tons of examples in this podcast. I promise you'll find some that really speak to you. First, because our brains are wired to protect us, instinctually, our primitive brain wants to protect us from danger. And one of the ways it protects us is by constantly scanning the world and spotting this potential danger. So we're interpreting the world and we're reading signs and cues, either verbal or visual or otherwise, for ways in which we could get hurt. But guys, in today's world, the hurt is usually more emotional than physical. And this primitive danger radar can be very useful if we're a Navy SEAL or in war or maybe living in a real Hunger Games. And it still can keep us safe. But in reality, most of the danger that we are programmed to defend against really isn't danger. One very strong survival technique hundreds and thousands of years ago was our ability to belong to a group or a pack or a tribe. And belonging meant that a larger group of people could protect us and keep us safe. And if we didn't belong to a group, we would probably die sooner than if we did belong. So you can see our brains see danger of not being included as a bigger life and death danger. It sees not belonging or being left out as a bigger threat than just like that hollow feeling that can be in the pit of our stomach if we're feeling rejection. And this not belonging emotion usually does look like and feel like rejection or loneliness, maybe insecurity. And most of us have experienced these emotions from time to time. So one thing we do is we unconsciously scan for ways in which we might not belong. And our brain is constantly interpreting the world and especially our interactions with people for ways in which we could get hurt. And we're constantly analyzing and sifting the world through our own personal filter. And if we aren't careful, we read into every situation and make something be about us when something has very little to do with us. Now, I use a very powerful object lesson with teenagers when I teach this concept to groups. I teach them that everyone has a brain filter, or I sometimes say a brain lens, through which we interpret the world. And our own fears and our own insecurities and our opinions and our past experiences totally influence the comments we make and how we act and how we react to the world. So I'm going to quickly explain what I do. All of the adults in attendance also find this very, very eye-opening for them too. So in a very big group, I hand out 6 pairs of those big clown sunglasses, like kind of the big circus sunglasses. And each of them has taped on the top of it a piece of paper with a typed up sentence that is kind of like a big thought bubble above them. And it represents what the person wearing the glasses is thinking. Then I have one youth stand up at the front, and they're wearing a bright Hawaiian shirt. And they say the same thing to every single person. They say, "Hey, I just got back from my trip to Hawaii." So they are the same circumstance for every single person. And then I have each of the people wearing sunglasses stand up one at a time. And I tell the crowd what that person is thinking. So I tell them what the thought bubble is. So maybe the first one, they stand up, they're wearing the glasses, and I say, "Oh, I am scared to fly," because that's what that person's thinking. But then that person responds to the Hawaiian shirt kid, and they say, "Oh, that's so far away. That must be a long airplane trip. I'd never want to go there." And then I have another kid in sunglasses stand up, and I tell everyone that they're thinking, "I think my family is poor and everyone goes on fun vacations, but I never get to." So that child in the sunglasses responds to the Hawaiian shirt kid by saying, "Oh, my family has a very strong work ethic and I stayed home and worked during this vacation." And then I repeat this on and on with other people wearing the glasses that have different thoughts and different insecurities. But we see that in each of the cases, those kids, their comments reflect what they're thinking. And they might not think, "Oh, the world is seeing my insecurities and my thoughts," but the world really is. In each of these situations, the Hawaiian shirt kid can see that what other people are saying isn't about him. It's much more about what the person is thinking, the person responding to him. And he can see if someone says something negative about his incredibly awesome trip, it has to do with them, not about him. And I use this example because it's good for us to be aware of this whole scenario from both sides as the receiver of other people's comments, but also to be aware that our insecurities and opinions are a lot more obvious than we might think. So, just like the big clown sunglass example, we all have filters that mold how we show up in the world. But we also interpret and evaluate how other people act and speak, and we make those things mean so much more about us, and we really shouldn't. I've been teaching you all how your thoughts create your emotions and ultimately your actions, and it's important to remember everyone else is operating from their own model in their head. Your thoughts or your value or your belief does not cause another person to feel or act a certain way. They say certain things or act the way they do totally from their model, or in other words, they act the way they do because of their thoughts and feelings. So being aware of these lessons about what is driving other people gives us more awareness of how to interpret what they do, or at least the awareness that we know very little about why another person does or says what they do. So just like in the sunglass example, we often don't know that somebody is scared of flying or being bullied at school or feels inferior to others or has body image issues or is being abused or so forth. We don't know what is coloring their comments, so it's best to not read any meaning about us from what other people do or say. So I want to dive into a bunch of examples about this, and here are some common situations. First, you aren't invited to a party or a social gathering. Don't make it about you. There are so many reasons why you might not have been invited, and most of the time it isn't because people sat around intentionally planning a party to leave you out. There might be maybe limited seats at the dinner table, or it's really a cat lovers club and you hate cats, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It isn't about you. Really, people aren't sitting around conspiring on how not to include you. So another one, someone walks by you and doesn't say hi. Don't make it about you. There could be a million reasons why they don't say hi. They might not have seen you. They might be totally embarrassed by something they just did or said. Stay neutral and don't jump to getting offended. Here's another one. A coworker gets a promotion. Don't make this mean anything about you. You weren't demoted. You aren't less than them. Be happy for them. Make it about their strengths and build them up. When really good things happen to other people, totally turn the focus on them. Be on to your subconscious thoughts that you aren't enough or you aren't progressing like other people. So here's another one. Someone snaps at you, is short, or even in your opinion is rude. Don't make it about you. Most likely they aren't mad at you. There could be tons of reasons why they might be stressed or impatient. Just don't take it personally. Let them have their emotions without you judging them and thinking it means something negative about you. I frequently don't answer my phone, or it can take me days to return a text or an email just because I stay present with my kids or my business and I don't feel it's urgent to be interrupted. And I really appreciate friends who aren't high maintenance on communications or can so easily pick right back up where we left off if we haven't talked or been in touch for weeks, or in some cases, a lot more than weeks. Okay, here's another example. This summer, I was in a situation where I offered to pay for a meal and the other person was a little abrupt and they said, "Oh, I'm not poor. I can pay for myself." So this other person made my offer mean that they couldn't pay for them. They couldn't afford to pay for that meal, which wasn't the case and wasn't what I was even offering. But even if I was, why not make it mean something nice about what the other person is offering? See, we have to really, really watch our brains from being like defensive or paranoid. And I know I've had periods in my life of intense insecurity where I was always reading into what other people were doing or saying. And it's totally ridiculous when I look at those things from a more neutral space. But I can see how insecurity was driving me to be defensive or protective instead of just being okay with myself and my imperfections and where I was. I would have been a much more enjoyable person. Okay, so here's another situation. A mutual friend comments on another friend's social media post and not on yours. Don't make it about you. See it as it is. First, why are you comparing posts and checking stuff like that? Just don't do it. And second, no one is obligated to comment or like or so forth on anything on social media. Just stay out of their brains. Okay, here's another one. The same family member can't attend yet another family gathering. Don't make it about you. There could be tons of reasons. And keeping score doesn't build relationships and love at all. Rather, reach out and say you miss them and ask how they're doing. Okay, now here's another one, and I struggle with this daily. Your child doesn't do well on something at school. And here's a little side note. I totally hate the online grading systems. I was so happy growing up that my parents didn't know when I got a C on a test. And now our kids, everything is out there for the parents to see. All right. When I log in, I see how my kids are doing in school. I can't make it mean anything about me as a mother. Let's say that your child starts doing things that you've taught them not to do. Whatever it is, don't make it about you. You did and are doing your best. Their actions are completely their responsibility. So we can be disappointed and maybe we're angry, but we can't wear the heavy cloak of guilt that is so easy for us parents to wear. I have coached clients and talked with people who feel like they should be at a different place in their life by a certain age. And when they aren't, and somebody else is, they make it mean failure on their part or that they aren't where they should be. One example is a client I was coaching feels very behind because she hasn't finished college or isn't married like some of her peers by a certain age. So she is making the accomplishment of her peers mean that she is behind. Is she behind? Of course not. So often we hear people telling stories and we'll jump in with our own example of a situation. And this can be totally appropriate at times, but when we can keep the focus on others for a little bit, we ask questions about their story. We see things from their point of view. We can intentionally stay opinion-free until they ask for our opinions or after we have shown empathy for them. Children are notorious for just going around and sharing their own experiences, not knowing how to engage in the social question volleyball. They want the attention on them, which is developmentally appropriate. But as adults, we need to learn to keep the focus on others for a bit before we start interpreting their situation by comparing them to our experiences. A long time ago, I got a new car and I saw a friend at the mall. And when I was walking to my car, and by the way, I was so excited. It was an awesome new car, 15 years ago, DVD player. I loved it. But right then, this person showed visible disdain and annoyance that I had a new car. And I was totally shocked and I was kind of hurt and perplexed for many minutes. And she didn't appear to be happy for me. But as I replayed the scenario in my head over and over, I realized that she had made my new car mean something about her. And she was comparing her car to mine. And I just kind of figured this out from remembering some exchanges with her and how it was hard for her to be happy for other people. And it took a while, but I was able to make her reaction not mean anything about me. It was about her. And I'll tell you, comparison and jealousy make us show up in such an ugly way in the world. I know I hate that feeling of jealousy inside of me, and I've had it, and it is a rotten feeling. It takes very thoughtful and curious minds to see possibly offensive things that other people say to us are really just a reflection on them. My kids hear me say this a lot, and my daughter has really caught on. She knows that when someone says something mean to her or maybe sends a mean text or something, and trust me, middle school is all about kids sharing when someone texts something mean. She will pause and she'll say, "Oh, that's just a reflection on that person. That means they don't feel good about themselves." And I'm so grateful that that has really sunk into her. In fact, my daughter recently had an interesting exchange with a neighbor who wasn't very nice to her. And she came home upset and telling me how he was so rude to her, and he's an adult. And I listened, and then I shared with her some of the past abuse I knew this man had dealt with and how he really just doesn't know any other way to interact with the world than to be mean and rude. He sees everything as like an attack on him. And she quickly saw, oh yeah, he is that way because of himself. His mean comments to me, they weren't about me. They were about his deep internal hurts and wounds. And that is seriously like the highest, most graduate school level use of this concept. When someone isn't nice to you, you can choose not to take offense and you can hand the comments right back to them. So there have been lots of examples here, and I challenge you to identify ways in which you subconsciously make things about you when it isn't. And know that your brain is doing a very human thing, trying to protect you and wanting you to stay belonging to the tribe. But the great thing about our advanced brains is that we can use our prefrontal cortex to tell the primitive brain, oh, no, there's no danger here. I don't have to choose to think this means anything negative about me. What other people say or do has way more to do with their brain lens and their life than it does with me. If we make all these scenarios and more mean something negative about us, we are creating our own pain. It's our thoughts creating the emotions of rejection or insecurity or shame. And the first benefit to not making things be about us is that we stay in control of our emotions. We create much less negativity and unnecessary drama in our lives, and we are just happier and more secure people. Also, we're much less likely to be offended, and no one likes to be around someone who's easily offended. If you're easily offended, you're telling the world, oh, I've got big walls up around me to protect me from danger, which I see coming from every direction. And easily offended people make everything mean something positive or negative about them. Guys, this is so life-changing. We can literally decide in one day to stop being offended by anything. Even when someone says something directly to us, even about us, we don't have to make it mean something about us. Okay, another benefit. When we don't make things be about us, we're able to show more empathy and understanding and compassion for others. We can see things from other people's point of views or their perspectives, and we acknowledge the world doesn't revolve around us. We can respect that other people have their own opinions, which might not match ours, and that's okay. I know I choose to surround myself with friends who are understanding and compassionate people, and I feel more comfortable being myself with empathetic friends. I can be more vulnerable, and we build closer bonds. Now, here's another huge benefit to not making things be about us. We have more control over how we act. We're able to stand in our integrity and deliberately choose to act the way we want to, knowing we can't control someone else and not making thousands of assumptions about why someone didn't say hi to us or why we weren't invited or why a sister-in-law doesn't come to our house on Christmas. We aren't stewing about those things. Instead, we can be the type of friend, neighbor, spouse, in-law, coworker that we want to be. We end up reserving our brain juice for things we can control and that do serve us. And this last benefit, the biggest, we stay out of other people's brains. Because guess what? We have no idea what other people are thinking. We are seriously so much calmer, more peaceful, more in control when we don't even try to figure out what other people are thinking. It's hard enough keeping our own heads straight. So that's what I have for you today. If you'd like more information on how these tools can help you, send me an email at heidi@heidibenjaminson.com or sign up on my website for a free coaching consult call. I promise in one call, I can show you how you can take back control of your emotions and your confidence. Please share this podcast and please leave a 5-star review on iTunes so others can find it. And I'll see you next week.